Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about how to use your hands on defense. We're going to break this into 4 categories. The 4 categories are essentially going to be split into 2, using your hands to get the steal directly, and then other 2 is using your hands to create physicality and use that to cause a little bit of issues with the offensive player. Let's go. So the first one we're going to talk about is using your hands on the shot in particular. So one of the key one of the key ideas that we're talking about here is Alex Caruso is undersized in the situation. Like, he knows that he has not the same physical stature as Jaren Jackson. And so he's going to use his quickness to essentially compensate for that fact. And so I've heard some coaches talk about like swiping up instead of swiping down because you're less likely to get a foul call. I don't really buy that. And so what Alex Caruso does here is he times it perfectly. So one of the big things is you have to make sure that you swipe when they're in a position where they can't change where their arm's already going. Because if you get a piece of arm off, it's an easy foul call. So you have to wait till Jaren Jackson makes his move where he's going up with the ball. Once he's gathered and going up strong to shoot, it's very difficult to change where the location of your arms are. And so that's the time that Caruso chooses to pick. He's not trying to block the shot up here. He's not trying to do multiple things. He knows that the calculated gamble he's going to make, and he goes to the ball and gets a piece of it on the way up. And another thing that you see a lot of defenders do is when they try and get a steal like this, they often swipe down extremely hard. And so if you're trying to prevent the shot no matter what, you don't care about a foul, then yeah, swipe down hard, that's fine. But otherwise, you do not need to just absolutely crush the ball. You just simply need to get a piece of it, and quite often that throws off the timing of the shot, or it knocks it out of their hands because you're moving in the opposite direction. You can see right there, the defender doesn't swipe down hard, simply swipes it down, timing it perfectly when the offensive player isn't ready for it. And so another key aspect here is the time and situation. You know that De'Aaron Fox is probably going to shoot this right here because the end of the game is on the line. But I really like the eyes right here. Okay, so as he's reaching in, he's looking right at the ball. He understands De'Aaron Fox is about to shoot this ball. So time it. Make sure the defender or the offensive player can't change his arm motion. He's reaching on the outside, doesn't even have a chance to get a piece of the arm, reaches in a direct line where he can only hit the ball, just barely swipes at it, gets a piece of it, doesn't have to swipe down hard, doesn't have to get it with like the heel of his hand, simply gets it with a couple of fingers, and boom, that's all it is. Wins the game for Atlanta. That being said, I usually don't advocate for that kind of thing on defense because it does take very good timing, and there's not that many players that can do it consistently. That being said, if you can, it's something you can definitely try and add to your arsenal. However, I think it's much more likely that you're able to target their dribble. So in targeting the dribble, you're trying to do the exact same concept. You're not trying to swipe in hard. You're not trying to get the whole ball. You're trying to just get a piece of it, knock it out of their hands, and let that cause just a slight bit of chaos, and attack them when they're weak or when you know where the ball is going to be. So in that last one, Caruso attacked the ball when the ball was all the way on the side. There was nowhere further for it to go, so he knew he was going to be able to get it essentially at its peak one way or the other. And so when the defenders, good defenders, attack the ball, I believe almost always they attack it when it's on one edge or the other. They don't attack it in the middle. You attack it in the middle, the ball can move side to side. The offensive player has too much control. So instead, you attack it when it's on one edge or the other. Okay, so we're going to see the defender right here. He's going to reach in and he's get the ball when the ball's on the right-hand side. Okay, ball gets crossed over right there. Okay, you know where the ball is. The ball's not going any further right, it's already hit its peak. And so he attacks it in this moment where there's nowhere else for the ball to go and causes just a slight bit of deflection, which causes chaos, and there's not enough time for the Lakers to get off a good shot. Actually, that's still a pretty good shot, frankly. So again, I believe this on defense applies more to timing of the when you're attacking versus who or where or whatever. Trying to attack it in the right situation is crucial. So we can see Thompson on balance, and where did he attack it? He attacked it when it was on his high on the left-hand side. And the left or right doesn't particularly matter. It's more important that you attack it at its peak one way or the other. So as the ball's all the way over here on the left, it's not going to go any further. So Amen Thompson reaches in, says, I'll just get a piece of that. Doesn't need to swipe in hard and get a chance of hitting the body, hitting the arm. Just pokes it free just slightly, and then you beat him to the ball is all you got to do. And this is the last of this category, and this one's pretty tough to duplicate simply because you got to have really, really long arms and really good timing in particular. But this just shows Daniels how good of a defender he actually is. But as Bane is driving, and Bane's a very good driver, as he's driving, Daniels is essentially going to time it when the ball is at its lowest point and it's closest to Daniels so he can reach his arm in and get a piece of it. And that's extremely difficult to do. But all kudos to him. That's great defense on his part. All right, so then we transition to how to defend it essentially when someone's already driving, when they're already on the move. And so this time you're not actually going to go for the ball. You are going to go for the ball at the end. But essentially we're talking about beforehand. So Jared Allen right here, Cat has a head of steam, and it's difficult for someone to recover that quickly. And so one thing Jared Allen does is he puts his hand on the inside. So we can see as long as you're not making huge contact where you're absolutely grabbing their arm or something like that, you're allowed a little bit of contact, especially when it's two big bodies going downhill. And so he uses his inside hand to just slow the momentum of Cat slightly and get the timing so that he can meet that ball at the apex. Now, one of the big asterisks here is it does depend a lot on the referees and how they're calling things. However, if the offensive player has a step on you, it's probably worth it to gamble by putting a hand right there just to slightly push them off balance, make sure you can't explode the same direction, the same velocity as you normally would be able to, and so it gives you just a slight edge when you're going up to try and block this ball. And frankly, I personally think this one's probably a foul, but the same concept applies. Okay, so this time we see Thompson go over the screen, fights well, and to get back in front of Jason Tatum, he's going to use both hands to try and make contact with him to make sure he doesn't have a clear driving lane. And so if the referees are letting you play like a physical game, I encourage this from defenders 100%. Put your hands on the inside of their body, especially if you're slightly shielded from the referee. So here, if you put the hands on the inside, it's a lot harder to see because you're making contact essentially behind where Tatum is, versus if you just grab an arm or something, it's a lot easier to see because it's on here on the perimeter, but use the physicality on the inside to knock him off balance and get a piece of the ball just to cause a deflection. But that's probably a foul, frankly. And we get to our final category, which is going to be physicality at the point of contact. So a lot of offensive players are taught to try and seek you out to push you back on defense or on offense. And so when those collisions happened, you're allowed a lot of leeway because the offensive player is initiating it. So one thing I really like about Jalen Williams is when Julius Randle is making that contact, he fights with his hands to get either a piece of the ball or to throw off the momentum that Julius Randle has, and uses his body to create just slight inefficiencies and knock Julius Randle off balance for the turnover. And here we can see Draymond Green. This is on with the game on the line, so he needs to stop it here, Şengün. We can see Şengün's going to initiate contact. So as Şengün initiates contact, Draymond Green's already fighting with his hands to establish ideal position and uses the physicality of when they come together to create a better position for him contesting the shot. The hand is vertical, the hand is right there, but his other hand is throwing off just a little bit of Şengün's momentum. And this early battle on this contact gives you either the edge one way or the other. And he's fighting with his hands to make sure he has good contact, to make sure he's going to rise and contest that shot as best as possible without getting under his lower body to cause a foul. And then we get to one of the best defensive possessions that I saw in these clips whatsoever, and that was by Cole Anthony. And so Cole Anthony does a good job of making it so Peyton Pritchard actually has to run into his body, and then because Peyton Pritchard makes contact with him, Cole Anthony is able to use his hands to fight for the ball. So here, he cuts him off right there, which causes Peyton Pritchard to have to make contact because Peyton Pritchard is going to have to cross over, and Cole Anthony beat him to that spot. So we can see in this contact right here, what does Cole Anthony do? He's fighting for hand position immediately, fights to clear off the hand, make sure Peyton Pritchard isn't just clearing off his hand. He gets that contact again, beats him to the spot. And then what's he doing? He's got inside hand position to make sure he controls the leverage and uses that left hand to go get the ball that's slightly off balance. This is absolutely tremendous defense. I love this right here, especially the energy. I absolutely love it. But uses his body to establish the contact and uses his hands to fight for the contact once the body was already established, so he has more of a green light. And then finally, my favorite play, and this is just so difficult to do. Very few players on earth can do this and maintain the physical composure that he does. So Lou Dort right here is going to contest Nesmith. So some big areas here, and this is one of the big things I tell everyone. I tell every player I coach is if you're going to contest vertically, straight up, meet them with the body. Do not let your hands come down. Your hands need to stay straight up. Make them make a difficult shot. Lou Dort absolutely times it perfectly. And originally when I watched this, based on how Nesmith reacted, I thought Lou Dort just plowed him over. I thought Lou Dort was coming aggressively this way. But when we'll watch the side replay, Lou Dort met him with straight up verticality and has just crazy core strength and body strength to make sure he maintained that verticality, even with Nesmith being the one that's going downhill. So we're going to see a side angle here in a second. And Lou Dort jumps straight up. Look at that verticality. Is absolutely beautiful. This is something so crucial if you're going to be a good defender. And so he maintains it and then absorbs the contact. That is so impressive that he's able to absorb that contact, still keeping the verticality. Where the referee is looking right now, they're not looking down here. They're looking up here, these arms. And Lu Dort's arms are like, what are you going to call a foul on? His arms are straight up vertical, not getting a piece of anything for Nesmith, maintains it, and then gets a piece of the ball as Nesmith is already falling down. Absolutely tremendous defense. I love this play from Lu Dort. Absolutely love it. So on defense, we can use a combination of timing the ball on the way up to make sure we get a piece of it, just slightly edging it. We can use it to time the dribble one side or the other when they're extended and use that to just get a deflection and get the steal. We can use our physicality at the point of contact when they're driving to just deflect them off balance slightly to give ourselves more of an edge. And then finally, we can make sure we use our body and verticality to make sure they run into us and we stay on balance all the way. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like, subscribe, and most importantly, have a blessed rest of your day.